Hi everybody, today is finally the day that oh my god, so many Hourglass palettes that I want to talk to you about the newest Hourglass holiday palette. This year they came out again with three versions. We had the Dragon, the Evil Eye and the Lotus. If I'm not mistaken, I think the Dragon is catered towards light skin, the Evil Eye towards medium skin and the Lotus towards dark skin. I decided to go for Evil Eye because this has more pinks in it, not so much peach, and according to the swatches, I was definitely drawn to that new bronzer shade called Natural Bronze. Depending on what palette you get, you will definitely get one of the finishing powders and then in all of them 5 new shades of blush, bronzer and highlight. I have to admit, I am a victim. I am a victim of collecting these Hourglass palettes, and to be honest, at the end, they're all the fucking same. So, what I want to show you is just, are these worth it? How similar are they? We will do some swatch comparisons and so on and so on. And I will also, before we head into any swatches, because it's going to be a little bit more chilly, talk through vibe, I will show you a demo of 4 of the shades of the palette. So let's go. For the short demo, I want to show you the bronzer, one of the blushes, and of course the highlighter. So this time, as said, I do have the Hourglass ambient lighting brush that honestly is a true game changer for me. I just avoided it because it's double-sided, so I keep it actually in the drawer of face palettes next to the palette. I'm starting with the bronzer. It's a shade Natural Bronze. Tap a couple times in. I just apply this in that regular kind of C motion that I always do. Out of all the bronzers that Hourglass has in these palettes, this is actually my favorite. And for blush, I show you Pink Fusion up here. I used the Refer 5 for that. Tapped a couple times in, and now I just apply this on the high cheekbones, a bit on the temple, and then on the nose. And the only highlighter in this one, this is Rose Gold Strobe Light. It's a very warm one. I wish it was a tad bit more cool tone silvery, but it's definitely workable with all the shades in the palette blush wise. This will not pair well with a cool toned blush like a cool toned pink or maybe even a purple, because that can look quite weird then. Of course, I also want to show you the finishing powder. It's the shade Soft Light. I used this with a fluffy angled spectrum brush. Soft Light is much warmer than any of the other finishing powders that I usually use, but as you can tell, just applied on the forehead, you can't barely see this because, no, you can barely see this. You can't tell that it is so light, and I even tapped in a lot of times, like I tried to build up here, pushing the brush in. What I want to say though is that strobe light, in my opinion, is not as glowy, not as luminous looking as, for example, maybe Mood Light or in general any of the other finishing powders in the other Hourglass palettes. I kind of like this as a blurring smoothing finishing powder, but I'm missing a bit of luminosity. So let's start now by swatching the shades of the new Evil Eye palette. So we have the finishing powder that is called Soft Light. This highlighter is Rose Gold Strobe Light, and then the first blush, Pink Fusion. I said it in my demo that this Soft Light powder looks very, very yellow. Let me try, can I build that up better here? It's pretty hard to see. It's also very, very hard to photograph with my phone or so because they are so sheer, and that's actually the biggest plus of these. Although this powder is too dark for me because of the sheerness and the way that I incorporate this in my looks, as you saw as finishing powder, it doesn't matter. But this one is definitely not as shiny, glowy, luminous as, for example, Mood Light or not Eternal Light, or was it Eternal Light? That very, very light one, that's my favorite one. Or any of the other finishing powders that I want to swatch with you. This is more mattifying, and I was a bit surprised seeing this, but not too sure if I really like this. I'm not mad about this, but if I want to have a matte finishing powder, I can use something else. Then we have another blush, Oasis Glow, Vibrant Coral, and last one is a bronzer, Natural Bronze. That first blush here, what's it called, Oasis Glow, that is definitely, in my opinion, the definition of a true nude blush. And I was surprised that when I used it for the very first time, that I like it. I did not expect to really like it. I already thought, well, how can I use it? Maybe as a nice natural bronzer because it is very, very warm, but it looks really, really nice. And I want to point out again, that bronzer, Natural Bronze, is my favorite Hourglass bronzer in the face palettes that they ever brought out. So overall, I think the vibe is not so mid-toned. It's nice and wearable also for light skin tones. So I swatched for you the highlighter again, and let's compare this now with different highlighters from older Hourglass palettes. The first one I have here is the Ambient Lighting Edit Universe. I think this is from 2022. Or 2021 or 2020. Honestly, I have no fucking clue. But this was the format that actually came with that powder here. It's the finishing powder in Infinity Powder. Love that one. And the highlight this time here is Supernatural Strobe Light. I barely touched that because it is a tad bit too golden for me. It reminds me a lot of a Pat McGrath highlighter that I decluttered because I didn't like it. Then I have two Elephant palettes. So this one with the B is the original Elephant from 2022 in the Elephant case. And this is the Butterfly palette in the Elephant case because I didn't want to have Elephant. And can we talk about this, please? The highlighter in here, the Metallic Strobe Powder, it's called in here, is a Celestial Strobe Light. I have to admit this is one of my least favorite highlighters because, as you can tell, it's just way, way, way too dark for me. And in the original one, we have the Metallic Strobe Powder in Beaming Strobe Light. And guess what? That highlighter is way, way, way too dark for me. And last but not least, this is the Owl packaging, but inside of the Owl we have the Jellyfish palette actually, and that is so far my favorite one, at least until Evil Eye. Let's see if it still is the case here. And the highlighter is Opal Strobe Light, and I think it is quite quite clear why this is my favorite highlighter of them all, because this is pink and silvery. At the end, I can wear them all, but do I feel confident with them? Not so much. So here you have the three blushes of Evil Eye, and now let's do the same for the other ones. I think I have to wear my glasses. I feel like I don't see where I exactly swatch. Okay, that's a bit better. So now, it's so hard to open. The blushes here in the Universe palette are very, very pretty. We have number 2 is this one. This is Vibrant Heat. And then underneath we have Luminous Rose. Luminous Rose is probably my favorite Hourglass blush in general because it is so freaking pretty. It is kind of warm, but it is kind of cool toned. It's like the perfect mix. And although you might think, well, this is not a real Ella blush, it kind of is, because on the skin, it's just transforming you. In the Butterfly palette from last year, no, 2022, the blushes were, Oh, I just realized I forgot one of the highlighter, Incandescent Light. I'm very sorry. So let me just do that for you. Incandescent Light here on the top, and that one from Evil Eye down below. I'm sorry that I forgot these. They're very shiny. Incandescent Light, I think, was not a new shade. But back to the blushes, we had the shade Soft Flush. Very, very pretty shade. And Sunset Glow. They were very, very close to each other, one just being a tad bit darker than the other. And in the Elephant palette, we have Iridescent Coral and Radiant Rose. Coral has very, very intense golden undertones, a bit like NARS Orgasm, and that rose shade, very close to this one actually. Last but not least, of course, Jellyfish with Rose Fusion and Diffused Heat. I was always very confused by the name Diffused Heat because it is not that warm actually. But here you have them, blushes out of 5 different Hourglass palettes. Honestly, swatched out like that, I am surprised that they're not closer to each other. I am surprised by the variety here. And of course, to make it complete, I'm now going to compare the bronzer for you. So I swatched Natural Bronze. Let me just check, because the bronzer was not in every of these palettes. No bronzer too. By the way, another reason why I decided to go for the Butterfly first in 2022, because I do not like the bronzers. So here we have it. This is the shade Lustrous Bronze Light, and it looks like someone had diarrhea. Diarrhea, like very liquid poo. Horrible shade, at least on me. The bronzer in Jellyfish that is called Diffused Heat, no, not Diffused Heat, Lunar Bronze, that was a bit better. That had a much better undertone compared to that one before. But as you can tell, undertone wise, I prefer Natural Bronze over these two. It's so pretty. It is so much more neutral than the others. So yeah, that's definitely the winner here. So which palette from Hourglass is now my favorite? Honestly, although I do not like the bronzer as much, I have to admit that the Jellyfish from last year, especially because of that owl packaging, is my favorite. Evil Eye is very good though. Please don't get me wrong. I like the way this is executed. I like the shade choices in here. And if you do not have an Hourglass face palette and you want to get into it, it's definitely worth it. Is it worth collecting them and having 5 of them? Absolutely not. But honestly, we're all hypocrites at this point because everybody is saying this every year. Once again, you do not need all the Hourglass face palettes. And I even said, I think you don't need that shit, that I'm not planning to pick it up. And here we are. I sit here. I picked it up because of these beautiful swatches of Evil Eye. And if I had to rank them, I would say that Jellyfish is definitely my top one. Evil Eye is currently working its way on the 2nd place, but I still prefer the Universe one. And that has a very specific reason. I love the way this is here executed. Oh, I did a mistake again. That had a bronzer too. Oh, I'm so sorry. It looked to me like a blushy highlighter. Sorry. So this is Glistening Bronze Light. And of course, I'm gonna give it to you against Natural Bronze. So here, Glistening Bronze Light. So much redder again. That was my main critique with a lot of, Hourglass bronzers in these palettes. Depending on the swatches and the lighting, they just looked way too warm and way too red for me. The Universe is currently number 2, mainly for the finishing powder because it is that pretty. Evil Eye, I'd say, is a good number 3, and I have to admit that then comes the OG Elephant palette and then Butterfly. By the way, you cannot imagine how much I regret that I customized that. I just hate that. But it is what it is. But of course, here it is the big thing with the finishing powders because it is Ethereal Light and Diffused Light, and I mix them and use them both together. I did not swatch the finishing powders because, let's be honest, they all look the same. I hate to say this, but on me, when I swatch them, they have barely difference showing. I have one that's purple. I have Moonlight. It's purple. But on the face, no fucking difference. So is it worth buying? From a collector's perspective, yes, it is an investment. It is very pretty. But as every single year, let me tell you, if you have already so many Hourglass palettes. Just don't buy it because you have it. You have it already. What are your thoughts on this? So let me know down below, what are your thoughts on this? Did you pick one of the new Hourglass palettes up? If so, which one was it? Let me know down below, and thank you so much for joining today. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out any cool videos, and I'll see you in the next one.